Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where we talk about fantasy things that are kind of nautical in nature.
Yeah,
I am one of your
it now.
hosts, the Alpha Dona guy, Brendan Bestwick, alongside my co-host, Gregory T. Filson. T is for Trim the Sheet.
Yes, indeed, it is.
And we're here for the House of Dragon, episode 5. Yeah, 5.
Five. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Brenton, for introducing me. Just the slow-mo in these shows is killing me.
Cool, man. Not so much this one, but
there was a little in this one that got me laughing out loud hard because it was so serious when they did it. And the other show we'll talk about, but
when we talk about it,
when we talk about it. So,
Lord of the Rings. Do you want to do a quick recap or?
Yeah, have you do the quick recap because I was gonna say, why don't you tell people what happened and then we'll get into it.
I don't really remember. I watched it last night.
I just watched it today. That's a good sign for the show.
No,
I'm just.
I'm kind of messing. I think this was it was a better show than. It was a better episode than last week. I will say that. Rhaenyra and the King sail to Driftmark to make the proposal for Serlena Valaria and the princess to be wed. This is accepted. However, Rhaenyra poses the proposal to the young knight that they'll do their duties politically, but will then basically have their own private arrangements. She is very much in rut with Sir Criston Cole, and Lena Valaria is a bit of a dandy. He's got himself a young man that he is interested in. He does. And that's, his business, and that's fine. They gather for a wedding feast for what is to be a feast and a week of tourneys and games and so on and so forth, followed by the grand wedding. But in the meantime, the queen questions Sir Criston. The intent is to see whether or not Rhaenyra and her uncle Daemon were seen coupling. But he ends up spilling the beans.
He does, indeed.
And as a matter of fact...
bushes, baked beans everywhere.
Yeah. And the wedding goes a bit, or not the wedding, but the wedding feast, the engagement feast, I suppose you could call it, goes a little bit awry when... Lena Valarian's lover kind of says, "Hey, I know what's going on between the princess, and let's just keep these affairs private." And then Sir Criston turns the side of his face into a 1.5 pounds of tenderized beef. Sir Daemon's back, and he's stirring things up as he does, but it looks as though this is just, all joking aside, this is on like a razor's edge right now. And I think that we're going to see that unfold a little bit more in the next episode, where it moves much further into the future and we see the new actresses take over for Rhaenyra and Alicent Hightower. We got a glimpse of that in the preview, but overall, what did you think about this particular episode?
Like you said, it was better than last week. Last week's episode was just weird and had a lot of it just wasn't great. This felt to me more of like the traditional Game of Thrones-ish thing of the setup where you said like you're pushed almost to the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
And like someone gets their face smashed in, stuff like that. There's obviously the relationship between the men, and then we have the wedding feast, and it's a good time. And just like Game of Thrones, when there's a really good time,
and it's
something
a wedding.
bad's happening. and it's a
There's a
wedding. You're
wedding.
like,
Yeah.
and you're like, I just like the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like laughing because I'm like something's going awry very quickly, and then it did. I thought it was. I will say I like this episode just fine. There were some moments that just threw me a little bit. And I'll say this: this is a yacht behind me. Boat themes. The boat scene was unnecessary to me on many
Which
ways. Where it was like a quarter of the way through the episode. It also looked really bad, and
was
so
it
I
the
had
one? Was it when they were arriving and the king was
yes.
vomiting? Okay.
Yes. I did not enjoy that scene. I thought it was just like every time, and I know that their episodes aren't actually an hour and 12 minutes,
Right.
but when you see that and then you're like, well, what could they do if an editor existed in this world? That's a scene where you take that out and you don't have it look bad because this show doesn't have the budget of the other show,
Right.
but yet it still is a show that people hold the prestige television, and that just looks so bad and it was so unnecessary. And I thought that it was like overwritten but also underwritten in the sense of like everybody was talking but like nothing was actually being said, and so it was just this weird build up to nothing. And then they actually have the wedding ceremony, the whatever you want to call it, the reception dinner, and as I was calling it. And then something did happen. This was not an episode where nothing happened. It was just the boat scene was like this nothing happened thing. And that's the thing that I know I say that, but I'm usually right because writers, and I'll get into it more there. But this episode felt like this is driving us in a certain direction. I will say that we know where we're going now, and that's good. I think that's a positive for this. Seeing a semi bloodbath is always fun too on this show.
I thought that this was a lot better. One of the things that I failed to mention in the recap was the ongoing thing of the king's deteriorating health, and the fact that they just went ahead and married them like right after the hall was cleared. The dude's blood was still fresh on the ground. I mean, they're just like, okay, we're not fucking around with this.
Well, they paid for the place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. I thought that they did a very good job, particularly what I'd call it the engagement feast, because that's kind of seemed because it's like the precursor
party
or what have you, but it seemed like they did, or to me, I felt like they did a really good job of using the music
rehearsal dinner. That's what I was trying to say.
Rehearsal dinner.
Rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
Not reception dinner, rehearsal dinner.
They did a really good job of using the music of the event to kind of build the tension.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I thought that they did throughout the episode. They did a really good job of using the score to kind of convey different things. But I thought the music at the rehearsal dinner, it was like creepy, kind of like it's supposed to be celebratory, but it ended up kind of being a little bit creepy. And you can kind of see in real time all the chess pieces moving across the board. She's wearing the color of Lady Allison is wearing the color of her house, that the tower of the high tower house in Old Town shines green when they're ready to go to war, and she's got the green dress on. And the Damon kind of like being the creepy uncle. Why does he have to be such a creepy uncle? Like, this is straight up like Megan's Law shit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just so it makes me
Netflix
so
thing
uncomfortable.
Ready to happen. Yeah.
It just makes me super uncomfortable. It is, I guess, we saw incestuous acts during the original Game of Thrones series, specifically with Cersei and Jaime Lannister, but this just seems so much more like
gross.
Yeah, like dirty.
It's gross.
Like
And I think that's
it's
the
just like
intent.
icky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be icky. It's supposed to be like this is bad and like this is how they used to do things back in the day, and
Yeah.
you know,
But
R.I.P.
um
Queen.
uh, anyway, yeah, I thought that this episode was much better. It was still really
Yeah,
talky. It was still very
super
much
talky.
setting things up, but I think you can just feel the tension of where this is going. But unfortunately, this is episode 5
5 of
of
8.
8, I believe.
Yeah.
Of House of Dragon episodes. That's definitely not the answer. Because that says, oh no, 10. First season has 10.
Okay.
And that's
So
the
we're
thing is,
halfway.
like, despite the fact that I think that there's so much tension right now, right after this episode, there's just still going to be more buildup. And this was something that you really saw a lot with the original series. Was you would build up and there might be some let out a little bit of steam here, let out a little bit of steam there, but it was really always the penultimate episode. That's the episode of the Red Wedding. That's the episode where Ned Stark's head gets cut off, is the 9th episode of all the seasons. There's other examples. So I think that if they're going to follow that sort of same formula, which it feels like they are to a certain extent, then this is going to still, the pot's going to simmer for a few more episodes. And then in the 9th episode, I would expect that that's where kind of all the hells
All
break
the
loose.
hells. Yeah, I think that's
The
that's probably
7
what
of
keeps
them, the
me
7 hells.
yeah. I think this is what keeps me so intrigued about this is, it feels more old school Game of Thrones ish, and that that there will be that big ridiculous episode, and I mean ridiculous in a positive way.
Sure.
That we're leading up to. Yeah, it's simmering over. It's a volcano ready to go. And then we'll get that. We'll get that mess of molten blood everywhere over everybody.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, I will say this about the Targaryen house tree is not a lot of branches on there.
I think it just goes straight up.
It's pretty straight with
Yeah.
a few diverging branches here and there, but yeah.
It's
What did you make
lofty.
of another thing I failed to mention, but Sir Damon Damon and his little ruse that wound up with his wife, his lady wife.
It was one of those moments. It just kind of like it made me shake my head in bemusement. I was like, okay, this is. I felt like this is what should have happened, but also it was just like a little. It was a little much for me. I'll be honest. It was just like a little like they maybe tried a little too hard to do that. And as good as Game of Thrones is or was, and is whatever this show, there were sometimes parts of Game of Thrones where they also did this exact same thing. And I don't know if it's tongue in cheek or
what would be tongue in cheek about murder?
Well, about them like going back to that, like going back to Game of Thrones and being like, oh, so we're gonna still do this exact same thing. And that's the tongue in cheek kind of moment of it, of like, we know that this is funny to you, because I thought it was funny. But I always think Game of Thrones at its best is when everyone gets murdered and it's hilarious. That's my favorite thing.
It's interesting. This is the political stuff though that I like, because he's, he had the confrontation at the dinner where he's saying, I want to talk about my inheritance.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how I think I said it out loud. Out loud, I was like, man, he is such a prick in all the best ways. The most entertaining ways.
Yeah, it's like he's good and terrible all at the same time. And I mean, I think this is what this whole thing is about. It's like you're not supposed to like anyone, but it's really hard to hate a lot of people too, because it's like, it's just you can hate them, but I think there's a reason why people like if you ask someone what their favorite character of these shows are, you could ask 100 people and you might get like 80 different answers.
No, I don't think that that's the case. I think that I think that the majority would fall into either the Arya, Stark, the Jon Snow, maybe a little bit of Daenerys, and then Dinklage. I think those are your three. I think those are your four. That is the thing. That's a good point that you made. Is there's not really a whole lot of people to like root for in a good way in this show.
Because there's nobody. I mean, I don't know if I have like a necessarily like, favorite character. Arya was not my favorite at all. She was my least favorite character on the show. Honestly, I did not enjoy it because it was so predictable. It's not her fault. It wasn't anything she had to do. It was just very predictable there, early and out. But anyhow, I digress. This show has no likable people, which I like. There's not a single character I like on this show, and I think that's a good thing.
So, looking forward to episode 6.
Oh yeah, I think this show has a good amount of potential.
Yep. If we did our job well, then go ahead and ring that bell, like, subscribe, share, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, like you're at a wedding.